People always say if your husband, or probably worse if your ex-husband, purchases life insurance for you, that's usually an indicator of something nefarious, aka he's probably going to try to kill you. I don't think that there is a single sign that is more blatant, more obvious than that. Well, according to Angie Solomon, there is. October 6, 2020. So this is a few months after her beloved son, Grant Solomon's death. Aaron, her ex-husband, who is also the dad of Grant Solomon, he goes to purchase 3 more grave plots right next to Grant Solomon. One for Gracie Solomon, their daughter, one for Angela Solomon, the mom, and a third for himself, Aaron Solomon. Why would Angie's ex-husband purchase 3 grave plots right next to their deceased 18-year-old son? First of all, Angie and Aaron, they hate each other. They've had a very contentious divorce since 2013. They spent the past almost decade hating each other, and nothing indicates that any event took place which made them reconcile. Would they really want to spend the afterlife together, laying side by side for the rest of eternity, just letting the soil decompose them? And their daughter, Gracie Solomon, at that point, she was 14 years old, 13 years old. Most likely she's gonna grow up, get married, start a family of her own, and want to be laid to rest with them as an old, aging grandmother, right? Unless Aaron Solomon has other plans. The Freedom for Gracie Instagram posts about the grave plots that Aaron purchased. And it reads in short, why? Why? He and Angie have been divorced for years, all the while he is slandering her to their community. Quote, and why in the world would a father think his daughter would need a grave plot at 13 years old? Wouldn't Gracie want to grow up, get married, and have her own future and family and be buried next to her husband someday? He never talked about it with Angie. She could understand if he bought them for himself and shoved that in her face to keep her from being buried next to her son. But for Aaron to put her and Gracie's name on it sent chills up Angie's spine. Aaron has a motive with most everything he does. They're friends, and Angie's thought was, quote, murder, self-exit? Maybe that's dramatic, but a life with Aaron is a life with fight or flight. Every fiber of their being believed Aaron had something to do with Grant's death. And now Angie and Gracie believe that they are next. What was Aaron Solomon's plan with the grave plots? Did he kill his own son, Grant Solomon? And is he trying to take down the rest of the family next? If that's the case, why is Angie Solomon the one in jail for trying to kill Aaron? This is the case of the Solomon family. I'd like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support the Georgia Mountain Food Bank. Now more than ever, with SNAP benefits being paused and the holidays coming up, their work to end hunger can be life-saving. This episode's partnerships have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's growing team, and we'd also like to thank you guys for your continued support. As always, full show notes are available at RottenMangoPodcast.com. A few content disclaimers. There's allegations of DV, childhood essay, and incestuous abuse, so please be careful. Today's case is very complicated. It's a situation where I do think everyone on the internet, they've got their own opinion about this case, and there's no way that you're going to change their mind. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what other pieces of evidence arise from the opposing side. Nothing matters. They're sticking to it. There have been a lot of accusations that have not been legally proven in court. It's complicated because legally we want to protect our team and we want to protect ourselves from any sort of lawsuits, but you have to remember that just because something is not legally proven in court doesn't mean that it isn't true. It doesn't mean that it hasn't happened, but because of that, it just gets messier. There was also a defamation lawsuit against many different parties. There were cease and desist being sent out. So just for the purpose of that, we're going to be pretty careful with our wording. We're going to do our absolute best just to compile and aggregate the allegations made online, the netizen opinions, and even conspiracy theories online so that you can come to your own personal opinion about this case. Any alternate theories, opinions, accusations are put forth by either parties involved or by netizens I found online, their comments, and people that have made everything public. Like, everything is publicly available. These are not representative of our own opinions regarding this case. And a small disclaimer here, if we show any sort of document, if there's any annotations, highlights, question marks next to those have been done by whoever originally uploaded the document. So that was not done by the Rotten Mango team. Additionally, one other quick thing, there are lengthy social media posts, lengthy podcasts, lengthy interviews, and an even lengthier defamation lawsuit that was filed in civil court. If there is a statement that I'm reading by quote, again, these are all publicly available information, but some of them have been condensed for brevity without losing the original purpose of the exact statement. So with that being said, let's get into the recap. There's really no effective way to recap what happened in part 1, so please go watch that video or those podcasts first, but I'm going to give you just a timeline refresher. In 2013, Angie and Aaron Solomon go through an exhausting divorce. Angie accuses Aaron of trying to kill her. Aaron accuses Angie of spreading lies and trying to self-exit and then blame it on him, and trying to defame him as well as brainwash the kids to turn them against him, their own dad. Angie's own father testifies against her, and that becomes a huge point of contention in the whole divorce proceedings. It is an exhaustive legal battle. Angie and Aaron continue to fight over custody after 2013, with Angie claiming and alleging, along with their daughter Gracie Solomon, that their father Aaron has been abusing Gracie ever since she was a little girl, primarily essaying her during bath times. That is the primary allegation. There has been multiple open child services investigations against these allegations, and they have been closed without any significant findings. Does that mean that the abuse never happened? That's not what I'm saying. A lot of the time, CPS or DFACS or DCS will close investigations just because they're overworked, understaffed, or sometimes you just get a social worker who just doesn't care. That's all you get. That's it. So it doesn't mean that these things didn't happen, but there are multiple open and shut investigations that have found, I guess, no damning evidence against Aaron Solomon. There are other big allegations placed upon Aaron Solomon, such as essay against Gracie, physical abuse against Angie, as well as potentially a human trafficking, sex trafficking ring that involves mega church leaders, the governor of Tennessee, a senator of Tennessee, as well as Gracie being a victim of that ring herself. So this is all happening after the divorce. Then in 2020, a few weeks after Grant Solomon turns 18, he passes away. At this point, Gracie is 13, so Gracie is their only remaining child left. And now one version of the story of Grant's death is that now that he was 18, he wanted to get custody of Gracie and expose his dad for everything that he's done. The other version is that the truck rolled down the hill, rolling him over before landing in the ditch and killing him. A year after that, in 2021, Gracie, the 14-year-old remaining Solomon child, posts a YouTube video exposing her dad Aaron and claiming that her dad has killed her older brother. Then in 2025, this year, Angie Solomon is arrested for trying to hire a hitman to take down Aaron Solomon, her ex-husband. And it gets complicated because Aaron Solomon does have a potentially in the 7-figure range, at least $1 million trust fund that would go to Gracie.
If he's dead.
If he's dead.
Mm-hmm. But
So
we don't know the exact amount.
Yeah, we don't know the exact amount. There's an incentive for both parties to either play it up or play it down. So even that's up for debate. Angie Solomon likes to insinuate that there's millions of dollars on the table. Aaron Solomon states that he only really received like $1 million and most of it was already used. I think the reason that it gets confusing is once his aunt passed away, this is his aunt's inheritance. She passes away, he gets a trust fund, and I think half of it was in land that he stated at least a few years ago that was not sold. So he's saying, I never sold the land, so I never realized any profits from the land. It's just there. It's a sitting asset. I'm not liquid for that land. And then the other portion of it, he received in payments of $100,000 a month. So that makes it seem like he's receiving $100,000 a month every month for an undetermined amount of time. But it could have been 2-3 months. It could have been 5 months, right? It's up for debate. So with that recap, let's get started. Divorces are the one thing where people consistently spend a lot of money to spend a lot more money. There is no rationality behind a divorce. It's, hello lawyer, I would like to pay you $150,000 so that I don't have to pay my partner $50,000. Or, hello lawyer, I'm going to secretly try and commit tax fraud amongst other federal crimes just so I don't have to give money to my partner because being with my partner feels like I'm being in prison. Yes, I understand doing all of this could put me in real prison. That's completely besides the point. That's not even what I'm talking to you about. One divorce attorney says, the craziest request I ever got was, the client was asking me to get her half the shampoo bottles she left behind in the family home. She was kicked out of the house. I asked her, under the sink, like, where are the shampoo bottles? And she said, no, the shampoo bottles in the shower. There's 2 to 3 bottles. Half the bottles are full. I want half of each remaining half.
And she's trying to be petty about it, right?
Yeah. So 2 to 3 bottles in the shower. They're half empty already. And then she wants half of each half. I ended up telling her that she paid me $50 just to read, receive, and respond to this email. And I will waive the $50 if she just takes that $50 to CVS and gets some goddamn shampoo herself. Another says, doorknobs. It was a regular house. They were not special bronze doorknobs, brass doorknobs. It was a regular builder grade home, regular doorknobs. Yeah, they fought over it. I offered to buy them new doorknobs if they would just settle. It was bad. Obviously, some people say it's not about the shampoo. It's not about the doorknobs. It's about pure spite and winning. One post online reads, a divorce lawyer told the story of a rather well-to-do couple. They spent months and tens of thousands of dollars fighting over absolutely everything, all the way down to a single ceramic ashtray. I can't remember the significance of it, but I think it came from the husband's family side. I don't know, but even after everything that had been decided, they spent many more months, and I think they totally spent $100,000 fighting over a singular ashtray. Then after a court hearing, the wife finally won the ashtray. She promptly strode out to the white courthouse steps and smashed the ceramic ashtray, left the pieces all over for the husband on his way out to see all of it.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it doesn't just stop there, because it's not about an ashtray, right? Another husband, he left his wife's prized koi fish on their doorstep of their house to die. She was so distraught, she couldn't come to court. He killed 6 of her fish. There's never a dull or a happy day in family court because everything has a deeper emotional reasoning. Obviously, it's not just about an ashtray. It's not just revenge. It's not just about fish. It's about being an abusive animal killer, but you get it. Nobody really gets divorced over what they say they're getting divorced over, like a bathtub or Tim McGraw, the country singer. One Reddit post reads, I went to school with this girl. She married this really rich guy in Ohio, moves in with him in Ohio. They seem to be getting along. 6 months later, out of the blue, she files for divorce. Up until that point, all I heard from her was how well it was going. Anyways, turns out, our little buddy had a fetish for getting off on pee. He asked her to pee on him in the tub. At first she agreed to it because she thought it was like a one-time thing, but he kept asking for it more and more, and she tried to decline it respectfully by saying, the bathtub's too small, it's too cramped. So next day she comes home to 24 construction workers and heavy equipment tearing the bathroom walls in for a new bathtub. A week or so later, they finish up the bathroom with a brand new giant bathtub. She comes home to a sign left on the fridge with a note to drink up. She's got some watering to do. I don't know what she put down as the official reason for the divorce, but it's definitely the bathtub. Some would argue it's not the bathtub, it's what he wanted to do in the bathtub. It's never the bathtub. Just like how Angie Solomon and Aaron Solomon don't get divorced over Tim McGraw, the country singer. If the whole point is to make Angie look crazy in court, it is working. Whether it is true or not, it's up for debate. But Angie's dad testifies against her, but so does her longtime friend. She gives a declaration to the judge, and she details a very specific situation that she's had with Angie. Do you know Tim McGraw? He's a country singer, and he happens to be married to another huge country singer, Faith Hill.
Is this divorce hearing, or is this for, what is
this? This is later. Okay, so Angie is trying to appeal a lot of the judge's prior decisions of custody being placed 77% in Aaron. And Aaron is fighting it back, and a lot of people are siding with Aaron, such as this alleged former friend of Angie, who writes a declaration to the judge and is like, I need to tell you about Angie. She's not who you think she is.
So this is between 2013 and 2020 or
Yes.
2025?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then he also uses this declaration in a defamation lawsuit later in 2023.
I see. The friends.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the friend said, that Angie told her Tim McGraw was going to leave his wife, Faith Hill, to be with Angie. Angie's friend writes a declaration and says, Angie claimed that Tim McGraw was singing to her at the concert specifically, obviously staring into her eyes and, quote, hitting on her. She was furious at Aaron because he didn't confront Tim McGraw about this. She also told me that Tim McGraw and Faith Hill were getting a divorce because he was so interested in her. Of course, the McGraws did not get a divorce, and I believe Angie made the whole thing up. Angie is potentially having a your name moment at a Tim McGraw concert. Maybe she was kidding, maybe this never happened, but in the court system, it's not looking good for Angie. She's not getting a good look from this former friend's declaration. Nor is it a good look that her dad more or less tells the judge that he would not be comfortable if Angie was inside of his house and he was falling asleep. He says he would not be comfortable if his daughter was there while he's asleep. Nobody asked for that kind of example, but damn, he's giving them. He's telling the judge, I'm going to tell you about her condition because I love my daughter. However, she's a compulsive liar. I cannot have a conversation with my daughter. I never look forward to my daughter calling me, although I love to hear her voice. And I love when she tells me about the actions of the kids. I can never expect to have a conversation with her unless there's some untruth that's going to be told. Unless something is going to be stretched. He tells the judge that Angie can never not tell a lie. She's never been able to tell the truth, which again, this is the same dad that she filed an order of protection against, so we don't know how accurate or how trustworthy his observations are. Meanwhile, most of Angie's doctors all state that she's perfectly capable of being a good and fit mother. They do not see her ever being a danger to her kids or living in a false reality. At least that's what's been reported thus far. Side note, even in 2021, a Nashville EMT comes forward and states that he responded to a call to the Solomon family house years ago. He says he remembers when he got there, Nashville Police Department were already at the scene. They had gone into the house, so the EMTs were mainly standby outside. He was familiar with Aaron Solomon. He had seen them around the neighborhood, probably on the news. He was always cordial, and it was the same energy that night. Aaron Solomon comes out very cordial, very polite with the EMTs. He's telling them, perhaps even apologizing for his wife's actions, stating that his wife is clearly mentally ill and causing all this trouble.
What are they there for exactly?
A domestic dispute.
Oh.
Now, Angie Solomon and the two children exit the house, and Aaron's demeanor quickly changes. According to this EMT, he became red in the face, and his facial expression showed that he was very angry, very agitated, and it was very obvious that Aaron was filled with rage. He stated that he recalled that Aaron made a few steps towards Angie, but was stopped by the Nashville Police Department. Furthermore, the EMT allegedly states that it was pretty clear to him and to all of his colleagues who the instigator of this incident was, and they're all thinking that it was Aaron.
So Angie's friend and father is pointing finger at Angie, but this EMT and their colleagues are saying Aaron is the problem during those fights.
But I mean, you know, a lot of people have been disputing this EMT's version of events because he only came forward a year after Grant Solomon's death. And a lot of the coverage after and during Grant Solomon's passing in 2020 was very anti-Aaron. So some people are wondering if, because this allegedly happened years ago, could he really have such a strong memory of this random couple? And is it accurate? And they're calling to the fact that a lot of eyewitness testimonies are never really accurate, not because people are trying to be deceitful. It's just humans are not that smart. We're not as smart as we think we are. But others are arguing, no, like I've been an EMT, not me, but like others are arguing, I've been an EMT, and trust me, like you remember certain people and they're just like singed into your brain. For whatever reason. I mean, sometimes it's not even like the biggest, craziest call that you get. Sometimes it's just like, I know that guy from church. And so this is going to be singed into my memory whether I like it or not. But more importantly, a lot of Angie's doctors are stating that she's perfectly well and healthy. So why doesn't the judge believe her? According to Angie, a former court-appointed guardian for the kids say, "It is my firm belief that Aaron used wealth and personal connections to win favorable decisions to the detriment of their daughter Gracie, Grant, and Angie Solomon, leaving them open to harassment, sexual, mental, and emotional abuse, and leading to the untimely death of Grant Solomon."
Who is this court-appointed guardian?
Yeah, okay, so this is like someone who would become the kid's guardian very temporarily while custody is getting resolved. And this particular one has remained anonymous. But Angie has posted a letter showing that it was written to the judge. I don't know if it was written to the judge. I don't know if it was submitted. Technically, anyone could put letterhead and write whatever they want. I do think it's difficult because on one hand, you can understand why someone is wanting to stay anonymous in a situation like this, but on the other hand, it definitely doesn't add credibility. The former GAL says that it's all because Aaron has money, millions of dollars that he has inherited from his aunt after she passed away. Coupled with the right connections, Aaron Solomon can, some people believe and allege, that means he can just do anything he wants. I mean, just about. Angie believes that Aaron is part of the Good Old Boys Club at Grace Chapel in Franklin, Tennessee. This is a church, boys protecting boys type of church. Angie says all the most powerful people in the state attend this church, and they sit right next to Angie Solomon, and it's all a boys club. Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee attends that same very church. Governor Lee was actually recently in the news for refusing to touch state reserves, a $2 billion rainy day fund for the entire state of Tennessee. He refused to touch it to help cover low-income working parents who lost SNAP during the government shutdown. So there's that. A lot of the influential judges, including Judge Johnson, one of the judges that ruled in favor of primary custody going towards Aaron instead of Angie, she goes to that church. Her husband, who happens to be Senator Jack Johnson, a senator from Tennessee, also goes to that church. Grace Chapel in Franklin, Tennessee is considered a mega church. On a typical Sunday service, they have about 3,500 attendees at their service. And according to Angie, Aaron, the governor, the judge, the senator, they're all good buddies with the main founding pastor of the church, Steve Berger. Steve Berger is no longer a pastor at Grace Chapel. He was the founding pastor, but there was church drama because there's always church drama. I think religion is beautiful. I think organized religion with infighting within the organization is very ugly. Steve Berger is also a little bit terrifying. He has now gone into politics, which is, I think everyone can have their own opinion about what it means to be religious while also being involved in how the state is run. But Steve Berger has publicly stated that his goal is to disciple members of Congress so that what they learn is then translated into policy. No separation of church and state is his entire dream. Yeah. And it appears that there are connections with him and a congressman who wants to get rid of the second term rule for presidents, meaning a president can only serve 2 terms. So there's a lot of connections there. Probably a lot of money because it's a mega church. A lot of money. And they're actually sending out cease and desist. So I love a good cease and desist from a church. That's like one of my favorite types of cease and desist because something about it, I'm like, I don't know, it just like riles me up. Maybe it's my religious trauma. But anyway, what does that have to do with Angie? Angie claims that allegedly Judge Johnson ruled in favor of Aaron. She, and this is a huge allegation, but this judge would have discussions about all of her cases with the church pastor, Steve Berger. This is what Angie is alleging. And Steve Berger is allegedly close with Angie Solomon. So he would tell her, God is with Aaron, so maybe you should rule against Angie. That's kind of the allegation at hand. I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know. I don't even know how the structure of a mega church works, if like the founding pastor even hangs out with any of the congregation. It all feels like some bigger coordinated effort is what Angie is saying. And it is very strange. She states that people at the church never paid her any attention. Nobody cared about her. But then suddenly, the night of Grant's memorial service, members of the Grace Chapel Church, quote, inserted themselves into my house. And she's stating that they barged into her house and they're desperately trying to convince her that Grant died from having abdominal injuries to his organs and that there was hemorrhaging in his stomach. She basically states more or less that they're trying to gaslight her into believing that Grant Solomon died naturally from this accident. With an Instagram post reading on the Freedom for Gracie Instagram, why did these people from Grace Chapel keep trying so hard to gaslight Angie about what happened to her son? Why does Grace Chapel keep appearing at Angie's door or in her text messages the week of Grant's death and weeks after? They never wanted to help Grant, Gracie, or Angie in the years before. Why now? Why in this way? Because the Good Old Boys Club. Protect the Good Old Boys Club. Some people argue, or it could just be a mega church. And typically with mega churches, I used to go to church back in the day. And like the one thing about mega churches and why people are kind of interested in going to them is there's not as much of a community built around it. So it's not everybody knows everybody's business. And so it could very well be that nobody really talked to Angie until they found out someone from the congregation or someone from the church, they had this tragic accident happen to their son. And so now they're actively reaching out because that's maybe what God would want them to do. I don't know, right? I don't know. There is that argument out there floating around. But the theory of the Good Old Boys Club changes in the degree of severity. There's like a light, medium, dark version. The light version. Some people believe Good Old Boys Club, there really is no Good Old Boys Club. that insinuates there's some sort of conspiracy, there's some sort of organized effort, and there really isn't. It's just men protecting men, typically, from allegations of abuse. It's less of a coordinated effort to make sure Aaron is found not guilty, but more so internal misogynistic biases. Our good friend Aaron from the church, he could not do such a thing. Like, not our Aaron. We've been going to church with Aaron for years. We would have known if he was doing something like that. No, our judgment is perfectly great still. There's no way. Angie, however, I always knew she was a little cuckoo. I never really even talked to her. She barely comes to church. They believe it's just coming from people who are probably very powerful in the church, and a lot of them, in netizen opinion, are not good people. However, are they really going to help Aaron in particular? It's probably just this internal bias that they have. A lot of these netizens that believe in this theory think Aaron's not even part of the elite. I mean, it's unclear how much Aaron Solomon is worth. According to a few transcripts, probably $1 to $2 million, which is a substantial amount, but it's not, I'm going to DC and swaying congressman amount. It's not lobbying and taking a private jet to the tech industry to lobby something. You know, it's just, it's okay to these people. So would they really protect him? No, it's probably just a matter of, oh, I know that guy from church. No, he's a nice guy. And Angie, she seems a little crazy. And like, where's the evidence? I don't see any evidence. So we're going to rule in favor of him. The next level up, like the medium conspiracy, is that Aaron knows something about these very powerful people and they are working together to make sure that he's happy so he doesn't tell anyone what he knows. Why would Aaron know anything? Well, he goes to the church. Maybe he's got eyes and ears. Maybe he just happened to be at the right place at the right time. Or he previously worked as a news anchor. Perhaps he came across information on Tennessee's finest and greatest people that would make it harder for them to get reelected, make it harder for them to make a bigger step into Washington. Now, a few things about this particular theory I will note is Aaron Solomon was not a big name in the news world. You know, he was mainly a sports anchor, not a super well-known one at that. He was not on ESPN covering the Super Bowl. He was just a local sports anchor and then a local morning news host for the local TV. It's very rare that these anchors are privy to such sensitive information about the elite, especially when you're not at the top. Mm-hmm. Like, I would think like the nation's handful of top anchors maybe know a little too much, and that might be it.
Yeah.
I mean, these are incredible positions, incredible opportunities. I'm not discounting anything about his career trajectory, but I'm just saying I don't think that would naturally put him in a position to gain any blackmail material or any sort of high-level information on these people. However, he could have just been at the right place, at the right time, whether it be at work or whether it be at the church. Then we have the dark theory, the most intense theory, the severity of the allegations of this one being incredibly high if true. At one point, Angie claims that these guys all run a sex trafficking ring in Tennessee, that they're all involved, stating that Aaron trafficked his own daughter Gracie to these people. On the Freedom for Gracie website, on the Angie's About Me page, it reads, over the next decade, Angie would go on to battle not only her ex-husband, but a corrupt court system, a cult-like private school, and a church with connections to the highest offices in the country. I don't know if any of these allegations are true. And also, 2 things could be true and 3 things could be true at once. So I don't know how connected all of these different facts are, but here's where it does get weird. According to Grant's girlfriend at the time, Hannah, and a lot of his other friends, Grant had set up a meeting with the founding pastor, Steve Berger, the main pastor, to talk about how his dad, Aaron, had been abusive towards him.
Really?
Yes. So
this is pretty confirmed by like third parties. Yeah.
I understand some people's skepticism against Angie. I understand some people's skepticism not against Gracie, because I think that ultimately, whichever way you spin it, whichever way, if Aaron is bad or if Angie is bad or both of them are bad, ultimately Grant and Gracie are the victims in this story. Regardless, right? Some people do have skepticism towards what Angie is also alleging with Gracie. because some people are saying that she could be manipulating Gracie or brainwashing Gracie or making Gracie say these things. Some people point to Gracie's YouTube video saying that she doesn't look comfortable. Some people say these don't sound like words that a 14-year-old uses. The fact that she's reading off of a paper, her body language, she's glancing off camera at times. People are all using that to try and say that Angie is brainwashing Gracie into saying these things. So regardless, I think when it comes from a third party who really has nothing to gain from saying anything, it's interesting. Now, Grant's girlfriend at the time, Hannah, she has corroborated that Grant never really talked much about his dad, but when he did, he just never really seemed to want to go to his dad's place. She remembered there was one time he was crying in the car because he just didn't like the idea of going to his dad's house. So he didn't. And he was always oddly very protective of Hannah around his own dad, which he thought was interesting. But she states that Grant had an appointment with Steve Berger and was going to tell him about the abuse that his dad was inflicting. Steve Berger says no such thing ever happened. Indeed, Grant did set up a meeting with him, but it was just to talk about how he can get closer to God. Steve Berger apparently states in a video, a sermon video, "You just never get a 9th grader making an appointment with you to talk about Jesus as a crusty old gray-haired preacher." But Grant did, and he sat in my office for well over an hour. He just wanted to know how he could draw closer to Christ, and it stands out to me.
This was after his passing?
Yeah. I mean, clearly even Steve thought it was weird that this 9th grader was like, "I just want to talk to you about how to get closer to God." So a lot of netizens are saying, yeah, maybe it's weird because that's never what happened. Steve thought it was weird. Netizens think it's weird. They all think it's part of some bigger cover-up. Because Gracie in her video claims that she told the school, she told the church, nobody did anything about it. Also, the church and the school... Going to be very careful with my wording here. They're not legally affiliated. They are two different legal entities, and they
what
have
school? The school she goes to?
Yeah, so Grant and Gracie go to a Christian private school, Grace Christian Academy, and the church is called Grace Chapel Church, or Grace Chapel, right? They're legally two different entities. They have two separate governing bodies for both organizations. It's like if...
What's the connection, though, besides the name? Are they run by...
It seems like they're connected. It seems like if Nike were to come up with a drinks brand and call it Nike Coffee, but they created a new LLC, a new corporation for Nike Coffee, and they've got a different board of directors for Nike Coffee. I mean, legally speaking, I guess they're two different entities, but like technically...
Yeah, okay.
I guess,
I see.
The affiliation is very strong.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
So Gracie is saying that the church and the school, they never did anything about it. Grant's girlfriend at the time is saying that Grant probably told Steve about it and Steve didn't do anything. So what's going on? What are they hiding? Why would the church not just go to the police? Why would they not investigate? Why would they not do anything? Because it's a church. Aren't they supposed to stand against stuff like this?
Yeah, but also the police? Hello?
Yeah. Now, Grace Chapel Church eventually releases their own statement against these allegations. That reads in part, recently a 14-year-old girl posted a video on social media platforms about alleged abuse that she had experienced in her family. We just can't imagine how difficult it must be for that young woman to be caught in the middle of a custody battle with her parents, while also dealing with the tragic death of her brother. Since the original video, a variety of websites, blogs, articles, and social media posts have spread information maligning Grace Chapel, Grace Christian Academy, and our founding pastor, Steve Berger. The church notes, to clarify, the three parties, the church, the academy, and Steve Berger's ministry are, quote, are all separate legal organizations with separate oversight and missions. Which again, if you have to word it like that, it just means that there must be some level of entanglement, perhaps even just socially, because the wording is very precise, that there are three separate legal organizations with separate oversight. But the church continues with their clarification by stating, considering the number of false accusations being made, we felt it would be important to clarify a few things so that our church family could understand Grace Chapel's involvement and how to pray for this situation. There were never any allegations by anyone that any abuse took place at Grace Chapel or that it involved any Grace Chapel volunteers or employees. The allegations of abuse in 2018 was between a divorced couple regarding their own child and had nothing to do with Grace Chapel. There's been false reporting that Steve Berger, when he was serving as Grace Chapel's senior pastor, had been informed about the abuse during a meeting that took place on May 7th, 2018, and did not report it to the proper authorities following that meeting. The claim that somehow Steve Berger knew of the abuse and didn't report it is categorically false. In fact, the alleged abuse had already been reported to the sheriff's office on May 4th, 2018, 3 days before the meeting with Stephen even took place. Grace Chapel has and will continue to make sure that any allegations of abuse are reported to the proper authorities. All of our staff and volunteers go through child safety training as well as background checks. Please join us in continuing to pray for this family, and if you have any questions, please reach out to us, Grace Chapel. Not really doing themselves any favors, the church also goes on to clarify something very weird, stating, in a recent article, there was also an issue that one of the family members who attends Grace Chapel is not a member of the church. It's important to note that Grace Chapel has a specific process for membership, and this individual, Angie Solomon, has not gone through the process and is therefore not a member. But the church does go on to clarify that not everyone is welcome. Membership is not a requirement for participation and fellowship within their church community. I will say that's a very strange thing to make distinctively clear for everybody, considering there's pretty strong connections that Aaron at least attended the church with a high frequency on most Sundays, even taking pictures of himself at the church and then sending them to Gracie. 2 Sundays in a row, he texts pictures of himself at the church, writing to her, "At church, thinking of you, love you, miss you, heart." Then the next Sunday, a picture of the church and an accompanying message. "Pastor Steve mentioned Grant for the 3rd Sunday in a row and preached about heaven today. Hope you can watch it." Because, it's a mega church. They like to upload their sermons onto YouTube and stuff. I don't know if the church is involved. I don't know if the church is not involved. I also think that I have way too much religious trauma to even come to an appropriate conclusion without being tainted by my own anecdotal evidence and personal opinions, right? But I do think that the responses are just a little weird. I've met a lot of religious people. I've met a lot of people of faith. And regardless of the fact that of anything, really, I don't think any of them would respond to such a sensitive topic and allegation in this manner. It was just weird. It was just weird. And I think it just makes everything feel unsettling.
Yeah.
It feels a little heartless. Even the way that they write about Gracie feels a little bit heartless. The way that they write about the family, even if they are not involved, even if they're being dragged online, I think that there are better ways to go about it. I would imagine more of a business entity, a corporation, to respond in this apathetic, cold, legalese type of way. But anyway, that's just an opinion that has no indication of guilt or innocence. Yeah. Now, on top of that, the church has also been sending out cease and desist letters to creators. I don't think that I'll be on the receiving end of one. However, it would not be the first time. It actually just gets me more riled up. So there's that.
They've been sending it to YouTubers and stuff?
Yeah, they've been sending a lot of cease and desist.
Really?
Yeah. But it's just weird. Again, overexcited legal action is not a sign of guilt. I just personally think it's weird behavior. Also, while we're at it though, I also think the school is weird. The school that both Grant and Gracie went to, Grace Christian Academy, they are, again, I think closely affiliated, even though they have separate legal and governing structures between the church. Regardless, Gracie said at that age in her life, when she was just figuring out what had happened to her in the abuse, she had nobody to talk to about the abuse. So she's talking to her friends at school, telling them what's happened to her, and the school tells her to stop. There's a video recording that has been posted on Freedom for Gracie, where it's school staff telling Gracie and Angie that a lot of the kids have been impacted by Gracie talking about what happened to her.
Like a secret recorded audio?
Which, side note, Gracie says, again, nobody would listen to her. The police won't listen to her. Child services won't listen to her. The church won't listen to her. So, who is she supposed to talk to about it? And she has so much trauma, so she's talking to her friends about it. I mean, who else? And the school administrators are heard saying,
I've had 3 parents over the weekend that said, my child came up to me and asked me, what is sexual abuse? Where is this coming from? So a lot of kids are being affected by what she's gone through and what she's telling people, and then they're so young. We're talking about 10 and 11-year-olds, so they don't know what to do with it, and then they go tell somebody else, and then it's I just don't want it to become become the talk of the school or to grow a life of its own? How do
I get it. I think it could be startling for some parents, but also it could be a great time to teach your 13, 14-year-old kid about abuse and what to do if you witness abuse, or if your friend tells you about abuse, or if you become a victim of abuse, or I don't know, teach your kids not to abuse. The school, though, the tone they use makes it seem more like it's upsetting the parents, it's upsetting the kids, they're not ready to have this conversation, so let's not talk about it. The school administration then goes on to worry out loud about this becoming the talk of the school, saying for her sake, it isn't just about 6th grade for her. This is, you know what I mean? These are her peers all the way up. So I don't want something that's going to be detrimental to her, that's going to, she's not thinking about the future. She's thinking of right now, but I'm thinking about the future and how this is going to follow her and her peers. And then I also have to think about what other students who are now having to deal with this. And not just from a school perspective, but as a mom who's raised daughters, I'm looking at Gracie's next 6 years, not just right now. And the things that are said and the opinions that are formed and all of this is going to affect her freshman year, her junior year. So they're all just worried about her.
So they heard, at this point, the school, all these adults and all these, people heard what happened to Grace, because that's what she's telling everyone. And their concern is that's going to affect her future. That's going to affect everybody else's school life.
Yes, so I was able to dig really deep into some local forums. I think it's confusing and conflicting. Interestingly enough, more people on a local scale in Tennessee seem to be more on Aaron's side.
Okay, tell me more.
Now,
What does that
Angie
mean?
states that he waged a local campaign against her, spreading lies about her.
Okay.
And so that's why she had to take it public on social media to get the truth out there. But then other people locally are arguing that the teacher probably said it like this because the teacher doesn't believe the abuse
her.
happened, and the teacher believes that Angie is brainwashing the daughter. So this is the teacher's way of saying you're brainwashing your daughter, and now you don't even understand the implications. This is her life now. It's not just a conversation she's having, this is going to impact her.
Yeah,
I guess, yes.
Yeah, I guess the feeling is I feel very conflicted because I feel like we don't know the full picture, right? What truly happened. We obviously don't want to spread lies or whatever. But what made them believe that Angie is lying, I guess? It's just so frustrating because the police are not investigating. But how do you know if this didn't, 100% sure that this didn't happen? Do we know this? We don't know this. Right?
We don't know this. I also think maybe being a police officer in this case, being a social worker, being the judge in this case is trickier. These are trickier things where there are massive implications to whether you close an investigation or how you rule in the court system, because there are lifelong things like custody being held by one person or one person having supervised visitation. There are lots of implications. I think it's weird that a lot of these third parties, like the school, are being the judge and the jury. If it were me, I don't think that would be how I handle it. It's just, okay, well, this is what's happening. And maybe it is a good time to talk to everybody about what to do if your friend is talking to you about abuse, or how to speak up after you feel like you have been a victim of abuse, how to not abuse people, how to see the signs of abuse. I feel like that would be a great time. I think there are heavier implications for specific roles, and they need to try and give some sort of verdict. Like the police, they need to have some sort of verdict in terms of closing a case or not. Same with social workers, same with the judge. But when you're just at a school, I don't know why you have to decide that maybe Angie is lying, so maybe I should handle it this way. Furthering Angie's point, there are videos of Aaron coming to school to pick up Gracie from school.
And I've tried to play nice and be nice about it, but you've been with mom way more than you're supposed to, and way more than what the judge said. It doesn't matter what you think right now.
Gracie has clearly told the administrators that her dad is abusing her, that she is terrified to go with her dad. And the tricky part is the judge has stated that she is to be placed in her dad's custody. So her dad's picking her up from school, and the headmaster is just telling Gracie that these allegations are old news and she's got to get in the car with her dad. It just gets so bad that the headmaster of the school puts out a video statement saying, please come to us so that we can give you the truth. I always say that we're not going to believe everything that your kids tell us about you, so please don't believe everything that your kids say about us.
What is
Yeah.
going on?
That seems to be kind of the way that they do things. I don't know. I guess it's just weird. Again, there's no implication of guilt here through my wording. I'm just saying that, in my personal opinion, it's just a very weird situation. But when it comes to allegations that Angie has brought against Aaron, there isn't as much concrete, detailed evidence to the allegations as maybe a judge would want. It doesn't mean that these things didn't happen, but just the nature of a lot of assaults, the nature of being essayed by someone, allegedly by someone that is your guardian. The whole point is to not leave evidence. The whole point is to not get caught. So we don't really have much concrete evidence, but we do have heavily disputed pictures. Remember we talked about the bruising on Gracie's upper thigh? Angie claims that it was from abuse. Aaron claims it was from a swimsuit. It's not clear. There's also another picture that Angie shows as evidence of Gracie's eyes. Her eye bags are super swollen. She has dark circles. Angie claims that this is after Gracie was with her dad for an extended period of time. She would come back, and this was clearly a sign of abuse. I feel like my eyes have looked like this before. It's like some sort of really bad allergic reaction. She did have eye surgery previously. I'm not sure what it was for, but there are mentions in a court transcript of Gracie having eye surgery and then moving into the primary bedroom with her parents for a while. So I don't know if this is from the eye surgery. I don't know if she's always had issues with her eyes. So there's just been all of these heavily disputed pictures. Everything is disputed, is what I'm trying to say. So it's very hard to definitively say anything. But one thing that seems less disputed is Grant Solomon's death. Most netizens think it's very suspicious. One netizen writes, I mean, this makes no sense. Whoever is covering up this murder is an idiot. Everyone sees it, yet the justice system has done nothing. Aaron Solomon should be rotting in a jail cell for first-degree murder. Another comment reads, Angie was railroaded in her case, and she had to jump through all these hoops to even just be able to see her children. The courts made her out to be a mad woman, completely crazy and unfit. Which is maybe why Angie felt compelled to take matters into her own hands by trying to hire a hitman who happened to be an undercover agent. 5:30 p.m. Friday night, Aaron gets a phone call. It's not a number he recognizes, but he picks it up. Hello? It's the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Are you home? No? Well, I've got a man at your door right now. Aaron says he already knows it's probably to do with Angie. He's explaining to the investigator that he's actually out of town, ironically, for a wedding, a celebration of love. Aaron says the investigators pretty bluntly just tell him, well, since you're out of town, I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you, we arrested your ex-wife. She tried to hire someone to kill you, and she's being booked right now. Aaron says in that moment, he just, quote, I was in disbelief. I was in shock. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This is not real. This is not happening to me. And since the divorce, Grant's death, and the subsequent social media discourse, Aaron has decided briefly to sue Angie and her friends.
Angie's friends? Who are they?
Yes, who are also helping her allegedly run social media accounts that are, Freedom for Gracie's website, her Instagram. Some of them are posting on their personal pages, but for defamation. Aaron's attorney argues in this defamation lawsuit that the defendants, Angie and her friends, are only concerned with destroying plaintiff and generating outrage on social media in an effort to raise money and sell products. While they have tried to paint themselves as noble defenders of free speech, in reality, this is a campaign of malicious bullying, cyberstalking, generating clicks, and spreading lies. So there are three camps of people. One who believe that Aaron is an abusive killer and he found a way to make Angie seem crazy so that no one in the justice system believes her, and he's getting away with not even just essaying his own daughter, but for killing his son who was trying to save his sister.
I'm sorry, what happened to the defamation lawsuit?
So he decided that he was not going to go through with it. He withdrew his defamation
Really?
lawsuit. And I think the main reason is this was like I forget how many pages that lawsuit was. It was a lot of pages, and there was so many exhibits. It was hundreds of pages. The whole point of a defamation lawsuit is to argue that you have lost a lot of money. There was no way to prove that he lost money, and also the fact that he hired an attorney to put together this very heavy documentation. That's going to cost a lot of money. Defamation lawyers, they don't do anything pro bono typically, and they don't just write a whole lawsuit and file it for free. So I think it just would have just burned money. So again, or he could have known that he's lying about being defamed, right? I don't know, right? You could spin it either way, but just let's say benefit of the doubt. It could be just the money wasn't making sense. It could be also the fact that he knows that Angie maybe doesn't have money. So it's like, okay, you're spending all of this money. Angie doesn't have money to give, even if you win.
Got it.
And if she's got nothing to lose, she could just make another account and keep posting about you. And then you got to go through another, it's...
I see. That makes sense.
Or it could be the fact that he knows, allegedly, some things Angie claims could be true, could be the allegation, right? Everyone wants to see it a specific way, so you could see it all the ways. Now, you have the first camp of people who believe that Aaron is evil. Then you have the second camp of people that believe that Aaron isn't particularly a great person, but Angie also seems to be very problematic. They believe that she's coming up with stories, whether she believes it or not is unclear, but she's convincing her kids of these stories and turning them against their dad. Then you have the third camp of people. They believe both of them suck and both of them are abusive, probably in their own ways. They think that Aaron is suspicious, especially in connection with Grant's passing, but they also believe that Angie is strange in the way that she's going about everything. So the three are, to put it simply, Aaron is bad, Angie is bad, and both of them are bad. From executive producer Ryan Murphy comes your next TV obsession, All's Fair, starring Kim Kardashian, Naomi Watts, Niecy Nash Betts, Tiana Taylor, with Sarah Paulson and Glenn Close. A team of female divorce attorneys leave a male-dominated firm to open their own powerhouse practice. Fierce, brilliant, and emotionally complicated, they navigate high-stakes breakups, scandalous secrets, and shifting allegiances, both in the courtroom and within their own ranks, in serious style. In a world where money talks and love is a battleground, these women don't just play the game, they change it. They'll never settle. Don't miss the show everyone will be talking about, and watch All's Fair, now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply. What happens when a funeral home cannot fit a body into a casket? I mean, it's a particularly niche problem that I don't think most of us would be on the receiving end of solving, but apparently Williamson Memorial Funeral Home in Franklin, Tennessee has that exact problem. And according to Angie Solomon, she believes their solution was to break her son's ankles so that he would fit into the casket. And now this is from Daily Mail, so it could be as credible as a rock that just flew in through your window with a note. But it states that Angie saw Grant's feet. They were contorted. This is during a private family viewing prior to the funeral, and she demanded that the lower portion of the casket be open so that she could see what the hell is going on. She apparently tells Daily Mail that she almost fainted when she looked inside the casket, and there was nowhere on the hospital records that indicated that his ankles were injured, but they looked like they had been broken. So it must have been done by the family home in order to fit him into the casket. No, because there's no other solution. There's no other reason for it. There's no other answer. Then it's been alleged that someone from the funeral home told her that they broke Grant's ankles so that he could fit in there. These allegations kickstart a Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance board investigation, and they have at their board meeting a statement. There was no evidence present other than the mother's recollection that the descendant's ankles had been broken, as alleged. The funeral home has said after the conclusion of the Tennessee board meeting, these allegations are intentionally defamatory, especially knowing the closure of the complaint with the Tennessee board. So ultimately they say this is not true. There's no evidence that this has happened other than Angie Solomon's word. But others think that it's weird because just 14 months after Grant's death, Angie Solomon's son's death, the funeral home is sold to a new owner, which could point to a bigger conspiracy. Or it could just be a very normal sale. But clearly, this whole situation does beg a bigger question. Is Angie Solomon unwell? Is she accusing people of things that are not real? Or is there a bigger conspiracy at hand? So we've covered pretty in depth Aaron is bad. Let's go through Angie is bad. Aaron's big claim is that Angie is mentally unstable and has been. The judge clearly saw that in 2013 during their divorce proceedings and placed primary custody in his care. But even with that, he states that he wanted her to be part of the kids' lives. So he let them see her more than they were allowed to see her, as decided by the judge, adjudicated by the judge. And she has been planting seeds in their minds ever since then. More or less, these are his claims, that Gracie has been brainwashed via parental alienation, which is when one parent alienates the child from the other parent by spreading lies and manipulating them. It's actually a pretty common thing, but, to believe that her dad, Aaron, has been essaying her since she's a kid. He believes the video is part of that evidence. The court even decides that because of that video that Gracie posted, they need to place her in DCS custody because it's just, quote, fear of psychological harm. When Gracie posts that video on YouTube in 2021, she was in Angie's custody. After that YouTube video goes up, Gracie is briefly taken out of Angie's care by the Department of Child Services because they think that there is fear of psychological harm being done in the household. One of Angie's former friends even tells the judge, Angie will say whatever she needs to say to get whatever she wants. She can be extremely persuasive to a grown adult. How much more can she influence a child? I am appalled that she has destroyed Gracie's relationship with her father and completely disregarded Gracie's best interest in privacy in mounting this campaign against Aaron. Aaron's lawsuit against Angie states that Angie and her side have allegedly shared highly confidential documents and testimony from juvenile court proceedings that contain sensitive information about their children with the intent of those being shared online. So his whole argument is like, if she were a good mother, she wouldn't even do this. Others are arguing, well, she did go to the police. She did go to child services multiple times before resorting to this. It's not like this was the first step in her process. So people are confused. I think each side has their own belief. The whole thing, though, Aaron is saying Angie is ruining Gracie's life without even considering what she's doing, all for the sake of taking him down and getting donations. He states in his lawsuit, I do not blame Gracie for these ever-changing allegations. I believe she is merely a victim of severe parental alienation by her mother. She has been hearing horrible and untrue things about me from her mother since she was a small girl.
My name is Angie Solomon. I'm 14 years old, and I'm here to tell my story. I just want to say before we get into any of this that it's coming straight from me. It's all me, and no one else is telling me what to do.
In the video, Gracie states that she's doing this on her own free will. But later in a podcast, Gracie's not there, but Angie states that because of that video, Gracie was placed in DCS custody, and she says, for the video that she didn't even willingly do.
For the video, she didn't even willingly do.
AKA, so did she willingly do the video by her own free will, or was it not? I don't know.
That's bad.
For Aaron's lawsuit against Angie, he provides a lot of declarations, sworn documents by people who want to share their perspective with their judge, mainly anti-Angie perspectives, which either means a lot of people don't like or don't trust Angie, or this could be the good old boys club at work. I don't know. I guess it's up for you to decide which one is true. The funeral director gave a declaration to the judge where they state that Angie was there with Aaron when the entire family purchased grave plots near Grant's gravesite. So she's saying, I'm so shocked that because I went online, and Angie is making it seem like she came across this information and was so shocked and thought it was like, oh my God, all I could think about was murder. Like he's going to murder us, basically. But the funeral director states, I asked who would be handling the financial part of the arrangements. Miss Solomon was adamant that Mr. Solomon would be handling all contracts and payment and that she would not be responsible for the payment. Basically saying that Angie was the one that wanted it more than Aaron, it seems. They write, any suggestion that these plots were selected or purchased without the knowledge or input of Angie Solomon is not accurate. Side note, she also states how they have strict policies of not having loose items on the grounds. Like it's very hard for them. This is actually across most funeral homes and memorial grounds. You can only have very specific vases that are usually like welded into the signage, the marker, the grave marker.
You cannot put anything on next to it on there.
You cannot go and place teddy bears. Okay, so typically what happens is the weekend of a funeral, you can.
Right. They don't want things just everywhere.
But you cannot, because just maintaining the ground, they have to mow the grass. A lot of people pay a lot of money for specific funeral sites because they want their loved one's gravesite to be well maintained and the grass to be lush and all of these different specific things. And so it is a strict policy that they're not allowed to have loose items on the ground. It's very hard for them to maintain. Well, for Grant's gravesite, the funeral director says in her declaration that for a long time people were leaving baseball stuff, like baseballs, loose baseballs, baseball bats, like little baseball figurines, baseball hats, like all of these things. And the funeral home tried their best to be accommodating, not just for the weekend of the funeral, but even for a little while after, because they were thinking, well, this is a young man who died abruptly, so we want to be as accommodating towards any friends or family who are just making their way out to the gravesite to pay their respects. But then eventually it's like, okay, now we got to stop the loose baseballs and all of these things. She moves the baseball items from Grant's gravesite. She's like, I moved it. And Angie comes in furious and she keeps accusing Aaron of removing all of the things that she left. And the funeral home director calmly states, like, it was me that removed it because, as I've told you before, you're not allowed to leave these things here. And like, I thought you knew, but anyway, now you do know, right? She thought that was it. But then, quote, I later found out that someone posted on social media that the items were taken off of Grant's grave, and the implication was that Angie Solomon had the items removed, which again was not the case and had been explained to Miss Solomon. Now, the strangest part of this is that Angie's family supports Aaron, not Angie. According to Aaron's lawsuit, he states that during the divorce proceedings, Angie's own dad testified that Aaron never abused the kids. I don't know what that testimony means. I don't think it means anything, because I think that a lot of abusers get away with abusing victims with nobody knowing.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know what that means, but he allegedly states that he's seen Angie brainwash the kids against their own dad. Angie's former friend that testified about the whole Tim McGraw thing, the country singer that fell in love with Angie, that friend. Yeah, well, she writes further in her declaration for the judge that Angie tends to live in her own chaotic fantasy world. Oh, so even about the whole fact that Aaron was either fired or let go or walked away from his job at the news station, that's been highly debated. Angie states that he was pushed into a corner to resign because they found inappropriate, not safe for work files on his work computer and they didn't want a scandal. So he then had to quit. Aaron is saying that's not at all what happened. In fact, like, I got promoted to being a morning news anchor, but they wanted restructuring to happen and they wanted me to go back to sports. I didn't want to go back to sports. And Angie was the one that was like, hey, then you should go find a company that values you for what you're worth and not just stick with this company and let them bulldoze you. Angie's friend states that was the case. She says, quote, Angie started a very dramatic Facebook blog about the horrible things that WSMV was supposedly doing to him. I remember thinking it was not very professional and would probably ensure that he would not be hired by any other news organization. So she's saying, like, Angie never mentioned at the time when this was happening, at least to her, that there was any sort of pictures found on his device. In fact, it seemed like she was mad at the news station. And she was going on Facebook and writing these things, which we couldn't pinpoint, but, I thought it wasn't professional because then he's not going to get hired by any other news station.
I see.
I will say another fellow news anchor of Aaron's posted in 2011, Dear friends, you may have noticed my longtime friend Angie Solomon hasn't been at my side at my news desk. I wanted to let you know that Aaron has decided to resign. Some changes were coming, and although he was asked to stay with Channel 4, Aaron decided to leave and concentrate on him and his wife's business. I will miss my friend, as I'm sure you will too. I appreciate your concern and your loyalty to Channel 4. Blessings, Holly.
Okay, so it sounds like there's no bad blood when it happened. Yeah,
so I imagine because Holly was his morning segment fellow news anchor, so it was the two of them. And I imagine if they found not safe for work things on his device, if I were Holly, but again, I don't know Holly, right? If I were Holly, I wouldn't write that.
Yeah,
I'd be like, good riddance. Like, that was crazy.
Yeah,
he's not a good person, and I hope he never gets a position of power, and I hope he can never get hired anywhere else ever again. I've seen people say, well, what if he and Holly were having an affair? And I think it's like, if it's one person, if it's just the pastor or just Holly or just the teacher but I think it becomes like a very widespread net that's occurring right now. So it's all a bad look for Angie. However, I do think this part is weird, but according to court transcripts from this particular hearing back in 2013, the judge literally states that he never hears proof from witnesses. Like, that's not his thing. But he wants to bring in Angie's dad to hear from him and get his side of things, even though he normally doesn't do that. So, like, why are we doing that now, right? I don't know. The judge continues to ask Angie's dad about what happened after, and he's focusing on the shower incident. That's like the biggest thing about the divorce proceedings is, did Angie try to self-exit for attention in the shower? Because remember, yeah, he's saying it was for attention. Or did Aaron try to kill her? So the judge is asking Angie's dad about what happened, even though he wasn't at the house at the time that this took place.
Yeah.
But he's being asked, and the judge is giving time to this matter, and I thought that was weird. But he doesn't even see her at the hospital. Angie's dad doesn't even see Angie at the hospital after this shower incident. So I really don't know why he's being questioned in any of this. But he says, for Aaron, he had to, when he found Angie in the shower, he had to fastly get the dryer cord from her neck. And again, I don't know how he knows this. Is this just hearsay because Aaron probably told him? Mm-hmm. And that he did not have time to take a picture with his cell phone. And when he called me, he was outside the house, I think. So remember how Aaron finds her in the shower. She comes to, she's fighting him, punching him, and is like, get off of me. And then according to Aaron, she's like, I'm going to beat you up for 2 hours until the kids wake up. So then he leaves the house, leaving her with the kids. And then he goes in the Kroger parking lot to call Angie's parents, which I also think is weird. I think it's very weird. If I am having some sort of situation, I would imagine you call the police. I would imagine you call the hospital for my own well-being or something. I would think it's weird if you call my parents. Especially parents if I'm not getting along with them. It's one thing if I get along with my parents, and I do, but for Angie, she never got along with her dad. She filed an order for protection against her dad before this happened.
And he found her because, allegedly, he found her because she tried to exit.
Yeah.
So then he leaves her alone.
Yeah.
For hours.
Yeah.
With kids.
With the kids. And if you would think that someone is in a state of self-exiting, they could also take the kids with them.
Yeah. That's so weird. So it sounds like from both sides, there's some kind of altercation that happened that night. Mm-hmm. We just don't know what exactly was the cause.
Yes. And the only person that might know would be Grant. Because according to Angie's story, Grant woke up. And that's why Aaron stopped trying to kill her.
According to her.
Yeah.
Right.
But according to Aaron, neither of the kids ever woke up. And he didn't want to alert the kids. The way Aaron describes it, it's almost like this type of stuff happens all the time. So it's not even like I'm going to call the police. So it's not like a shocking moment. It's kind of like, here goes Angie again. That's how he describes it, and why he's not calling the police or taking the kids or like doing something very drastic. Now, remember how Aaron he's in the Kroger parking lot by himself, and he calls Angie's dad. And Angie's dad tells the judge, Aaron milled around the neighborhood, until about 6 o'clock, went back to the house when the kids woke up so that they wouldn't be concerned, why daddy was gone. We didn't go. He's talking to the judge about him and his wife. He's like, we didn't go. We waited. We just waited for time and prayed to God about this matter. And then we went to our church services that morning. In which situation would one pray and go to church after your son-in-law calls you to say that your daughter tried to self-exit? Like, I feel like you should pray. Yes, that's great. I think praying can do a lot of things. But in this specific time frame, perhaps medical intervention could do, I don't know, a tiny bit more. He's asked, did you want to see her? The judge is like, did you want to see her eventually when she goes to the hospital? And he says, certainly. No, I take that back. I don't think it would have been good for us to have seen her at that time. I don't think that she would have wanted to see us under those circumstances. We had to admit her. He also admits, I think she's just a very nervous individual. Describe how, right? When we're sitting around a lot of times and we're talking, she is fooling with her fingers. She could just be so bored of you. I don't know. But he continues, and this is something that's prevalent with her for some time, and I'm just lost for any other descriptions, Your Honor. It's just weird. A lot of netizens say it's a conflicting feeling. On one hand, these testimonies don't do Angie favors, but they also kind of don't do Aaron any favors. Especially the fact that the judge at the time states that he found Angie's dad to be very vague, but still credible. Vague and credible. Those are two words that are typically not put together in a way that makes people feel reassured. Then later on in the custody battle and divorce proceedings, Angie is ordered to undergo a forensic mental health examination ordered by the judge. The judge also chooses which doctor would see Angie. Dr. Freeman. Dr. Freeman allegedly states that Angie is fine and well. The judge throws out the examination.
Oh, that's weird.
According to Angie, the judge does this for no reason at all that she can understand. Just decides, never mind, I'm not going to use this as a factor of my consideration for anything. Forget we ever did that. That's not the only thing the judge refuses to let into evidence. But according to Angie's side, quote, the judge would not let this be presented because he looked at Angie and said, you wrote this yourself. You are mentally ill. If you send one more letter to me, I'll have you thrown in jail.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's according to Angie, though.
Yeah.
Not court transcript.
No, according to Angie.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there are parts of the court transcript where the judge is like, I think you're lying to me. I think you're lying to me, and I think you're unwell. Yeah, I will say not helping Angie's case is that this person who wrote this letter wants to remain anonymous, so it's not like it could be easily cleared up right now, whether or not the judge is right. However, the letter reads in short, my name is blank, redacted. I'm writing to share my concerns. It goes on to talk about how Aaron is not a great coach at kids' sports games. However, Angie is a great coach at kids' sports games. And then, quote, comments from citizens reflecting Aaron's behavior have been the following. Something's not right about Aaron. Secretive, sneaky, shifty. He has a lack of eye contact. He's awkward and he's untrustworthy. So it's slightly vague. I don't think that it would have been helpful regardless, but the judge doesn't allow it, even though other vague things have been allowed, like the finger fidgeting. However, I will say the judge is weird. At one point, Aaron's defense attorney, while questioning Angie's dad on the stand, who is clearly not doing his daughter any favors, the attorney asks him, does Angie lose her temper easily? Angie's attorney objects because that's a very leading question, to which the judge responds, it's close, but I'm going to allow it. I'll allow it. Auntie Bev strikes again, okay? So they allow it. And Angie's dad responds, yes, she does. However, the judge is like, can you give us a specific example of how she loses her temper easily? And he says, I believe my son-in-law has briefed us on. I'm asking things that you have witnessed. The only time she lost her temper with me was on the phone, the last conversation we had. Okay, so does she lose her temper easily or just one time? That doesn't sound like someone that has a short fuse. The judge then asks him, what part of her behavior was causing concern? Because her dad testifies it didn't feel safe for her to be around the kids. He doesn't even feel safe taking a nap if she's in his house. The judge is asking, like, is she hallucinating? Is she seeing things that don't exist? Is she paranoid? Like, what does she think people are out to get her? Oh, yes. Give me an example of that. I just wish I could recall them. She's always had a very jealous heart towards her husband, feeling that he was always involved with other women, and she's expressed to us a lot. And I don't know what kind of illness that would be, under what entitlement that would be under, but Your Honor, I just can't give you an exact illness. I know that I would be very concerned with her being with my grandchildren at this time. To which Angie's attorney pipes up and is like, what if Mr. Solomon was having contact and communication or relationships with other women? What if your daughter was really telling you the truth about that? Ma'am, I'm a man of the Bible, and I believe in truthfulness. And I try to, I just despise in my life constantly hearing turmoil. Yeah.
Oh.
So my feeling about the dad is, even if the abuse is happening, he's not one to listen.
Yeah.
That tells me everything I need to know about the dad. So that tells me his entire testimony means nothing, at least to me personally. Constantly hearing turmoil and this going on and that going on and this going on. And I just asked you, sir. I never believed it. I would never believe it until you showed me proof. But after all of that, the judge states that Angie can no longer bring new claims against Aaron for at least 6 years until Gracie is at least 18 years old. A judge declares that Angie is an abusive litigant and blocks her from fighting Aaron in court until 6 years later. which is incredibly aggressive, right? But it is stated in Aaron's new lawsuit that a lot of it has to do with the fact that during their divorce, someone had reported to the Department of Child Services, like during the divorce proceedings, that Aaron Solomon is abusive. And they investigate and they close the case. They don't find any abuse. Doesn't mean that there wasn't abuse, but they state that they don't find any abuse. Now, Aaron Solomon is like, I'm pretty sure Angie did that to get the upper hand during the custody battle. Angie testifies on the stand. No, I didn't. So the judge orders DCS workers to report who made the initial accusation, and they more or less state that it was exactly Angie Solomon. The report from the divorce courts read, the court finds that Ms. Solomon has not been honest with this honorable court as it relates to the referrals to the Department of Child Services. She in fact made the reports herself, which again, does that mean Angie is insane and is willing to do anything to win this divorce and custody battle, such as bring forth false allegations against Aaron? Or does it mean that Angie is so desperate for someone to finally protect her and the kids that fine, she lied about it because nobody believes her, so why would she say she reported it because nobody believes her? I guess it's up to you, because we are all legally allowed to have our own opinions. That is, we're not allowed to have free healthcare, but we at least get free opinions in this country, so that's fucking great. But later, the court documents reportedly read that it will not be ordering parental time with Angie because, quote, the court's great concern with the false statements made and Ms. Solomon's overall lack of honesty with this honorable court since these proceedings first began. The most damaging testimony to Mrs. Solomon came from Mrs. Solomon herself. Simply stated, Mrs. Solomon, I do not believe you. And I will say there are some parts where it is harder to believe Angie in the transcript. So during the divorce proceedings, Aaron's attorney confronts Angie and states, you told the judge that you don't have any money. Because that's the whole thing. Like, they do fight over money in 2013. You told the judge you don't have any money, but you raised $17,000 over the internet. So this is in 2013. This is before most of the nation even knew about the Solomon family. But you raised over $17,000 over the internet by telling people that he stole your babies. So she allegedly went on Facebook and alleged that Aaron Solomon kidnapped the kids from her. And she needs money to get them back. So allegedly people donated $17,000. And what did you do with that money? And she says, first of all, I didn't tell anyone I needed $17,000. Did you raise $17,000? No. How much did you raise? So far, I've only been able to acquire $3,900. So some people are pointing to this and connecting it with, it does seem like she's always looking for donations. And, the judge is upset with her mainly because the judge is saying, why would you write on Facebook that he kidnapped your babies? Because I signed the restraining order. So technically, you weren't allowed to be around your kids. So, technically, if anyone's to blame, it would be me, but you went online and wrote that your ex-husband kidnapped your kids, or, your husband kidnapped your kids. And then she, states that her Facebook was hacked. And so that's, really not a good look. But probably the part that reflected the worst on Angie in the divorce is the shower incident. Remember how in part 1, Angie kept saying her version where she alleges that Aaron tried to kill her. Aaron's version is that Angie tried to self-exit. Well, during the divorce, it comes up a lot, and according to the lawsuit Solomon v. Solomon and transcripts from the original Solomon divorce proceedings, which we were able to get our hands on, Angie allegedly sent messages to Aaron immediately after the incident. Text messages that read, quote, but it's over for me now. You live with it. I'll always be watching over you. So this is my last writing on this earth. Quote, I guess I will prepare for what exists for the cowards on the other side. And with religion, there is usually a connotation of self-exit being a cowardly thing.
Right. Okay.
And frowned upon. So the word coward is heavily debated. She writes, I am not trying to self-exit. I made a bad choice for attention. So now it's almost insinuating that it was not a self-exit attempt, but it was a fake self-exit attempt for attention. But I accept responsibility for that choice, and I have learned why I did it and won't repeat it. I'm hysterical and I'm ending it all. You are gone and you took my babies again. I won't be alive through this day. I found one bullet in the chamber and I left a note for the babies. I can't live this way. I called mom and I told her and dad goodbye. I never wanted to hurt myself, but I can't stand this pain and you won't talk to me. You took my children. Again, I hope one bullet does the trick because I'm not sure I know what I'm doing. I guess this is for old Ange. I'm scared to do this, but I can't live without you, Gracie and Grant. Here goes. Then another thread where Aaron texts Angie, and I have a picture of you in the shower when you tried to self-exit with the blow dryer. Angie responds, oh, Aaron, you took a picture before you tried to help me? That shows me where this has gone. Just go find another. I staged that anyway, but who cares? Use it against me. Now I'm a complete wreck. I won't be making any field trip or to the school. I'm beyond hysteria. I gotta calm down. All I wanted was to be loved, nothing more. Unfortunately, I wouldn't kill myself, but you would memorialize my faking it to get attention and use it against me instead of loving me.
That is crazy. So that came out during the divorce. Wow.
Angie states she doesn't recall sending these messages. She just knows that Aaron is the one that put the cord around her neck. Then she's presented with another text message that reads, I'm hysterical, I'm gonna end it. And she says, quote, I do not recall sending that. I did not see anything on here that says that I sent that. So they have a recess where the judge is like, I'm gonna go eat my sandwich in the back in the chambers and I'm gonna, Angie, give me your phone.
What?
So they take Angie's phone and they find the text messages.
They scroll back and wow.
She says then, I don't recall saying that, but if I did, I just said it because I knew it would bring him back home with the kids. So I just said it because I knew that's the only way he would get back. There's a text message from Aaron to Angie around that time that reads, please don't do anything drastic. I love you. The kids love you. You need to get more help. Seriously, I'm worried about you. Which some people believes goes to Aaron's argument that Angie is unwell and is constantly doing these types of things and accusing him of things and is unfit. Then Aaron's attorney presents another email that Angie allegedly sent Aaron that reads, I'm not wanting to self-exit. I made a bad choice for attention, but I'm accepting it. And so she's asked, what are you talking about in this email? And she states, in order for Aaron to stay at home with me, I had to take ownership of what happened. Tell us what you're taking ownership for. Like, what bad choices are you taking ownership for? Angie's explaining that in their marriage, when anything goes wrong, any sort of violence takes place, she has to take ownership and fault for it in order for him to come back. And all she wants is her kids to come back because she doesn't trust him with their kids alone. So she's saying, this is just because this is what needs to be done. I will say a lot of netizens understand to some degree. They say that in toxic abusive relationships, the abusive partner will have you saying things or taking responsibility for their abuse by saying that you will work on not triggering them to violently assault them. Things of that nature. So she's stating that's the only reason that this happened. Now, the reason that a lot of netizens are a little conflicted about whether or not to believe Angie in this scenario particularly is that she doesn't just outright tell the judge that. I think perhaps, maybe, if she had said, hey, this is what happens because of A, B, C, and D. But then others are arguing, well, maybe she kind of tried, but she's not that good with communication. She's not that good with expressing what's happening. Maybe she's just discovering that she's being abused. So it's just it's hard for her to put into words why this is happening to her, what's happening. But she does state, like, that's how I would get him to come back. But others argue if that's the case, why did she lie and say she doesn't remember sending them? But maybe she doesn't remember sending them, but they were on her phone. So it's just all sorts of complicated. And then the judge does something that is annoying. The judge asks her, why did you even want him to come back? And she's like, because the kids, and I don't know, like, she doesn't have a good reason, which again, like, a lot of people in abusive relationships don't have great reasons. But the judge is like, and this is the man who you said put a cord around your neck and you wanted him back? So the judge, I think, is not particularly my favorite judge, does not seem to have, at least in my opinion, the best understanding of toxic abusive relationships, whether it is Angie and Aaron or if it's not. But it's just, why would you ask that? He continues to ask, why would you want that man back? I wanted him back because I love him. I loved him then. But what you're saying to me doesn't make any sense. These are all the reasons why people are starting to, even in 2025 after Angie's arrest, are starting to turn on Angie, and they believe that there's a lot that she's hiding that we don't know about. And they're hoping that potentially a criminal trial, a trial for murder for hire plot, will bring answers finally. A lot of people believe that there are too many unproven claims going in too many different directions. Angie has accused Aaron of being part of that high-powered sex trafficking ring, and then we never really hear much of it ever again. We hear that he was, on top of being accused of being an abuser who has manipulated, tortured, and assaulted his family for years. Also, potentially, he took pictures of her while she was on drugs and positioned her body and then showed those pictures to third parties. And also that he was drugging women on a large scale whilst he was working as a bartender. Freedom for Gracie posts on Instagram a picture of Aaron wearing a tutu and Halloween makeup, making a drink, and the caption reads, "This was Halloween." But Aaron worked as a bartender at night. Even as a professional businessman, he continued bartending. Post-divorce, Angie has heard stories that Aaron drugged women back in these days before people knew what it meant to be roofied. We don't really have any other claims or other people coming forward. I mean, sometimes the Freedom for Gracie Instagram page will say people have come forward, but we don't really get more information out of it. And normally I would say I would feel inclined to believe it, but obviously with highly contentious divorces and custody battles, I've seen people say absolute insane things about their ex-partners, so I don't know. Aaron claims that all of this is not even just to destroy his reputation, but, quote, "It's part of a concerted commercial scheme to sell products and raise money for Angie Solomon by misleading consumers with false statements to generate sympathy." And for the longest time, Aaron Solomon was silent. And a lot of people took that silence as guilt. I think a lot of people were thinking, why would you not come forward and say, these are not true, like this is not me? And Aaron Solomon was arguing that he did with the community, he did with people he cared about. He didn't feel the need to do it on a national scale. But eventually, after Angie Solomon's arrest, Aaron is featured on 2 episodes of a Good for Grief podcast. It's a very small podcast done by one of Aaron's friends. I believe they also attend to Grace Chapel Church. And so this is not just like an unbiased, confrontational podcast interview. This is not testing the theories, testing the evidence type of interview. It's not investigative. It's completely, here's my friend. I'm just going to use your platform to say what I want to say, which is, fine. But, it's an interesting podcast. It's an interesting listen. He's asked in that podcast if he feels relief in the strange sense of the word, because the way that Angie was arrested, the podcast host believes that this shows the public, this shows the people who was the crazy one in the relationship. Aaron does start getting emotional. He says, I don't know if relief is the right word, because it's hard to hear no matter what, the mother of your children and the person you married speak so easily about wanting you dead. That's very hard to hear. It's hard.
I don't know if relief is the right word. It's hard to hear, no matter what, the mother of your children and the person you married to speak so easily about wanting you dead. That's hard to hear.
He says it's validating in some ways. He says, quote, "It's also somewhat alarming and disturbing how many of her supporters still want me dead and speak outwardly about it online." And you're like, so my head is on a swivel every day, and that's not fun. He says he hasn't spoken to Gracie, his daughter, in 5 years. He says, "My heart hurts of her because I can't remember if I said this before, but with all that's gone on, I feel like I failed in not protecting my daughter from what has happened to her via her mother from a mental perspective." He says, this whole time I've been very quiet. I wasn't sure it would benefit her at all for me. And for both parents to be out there on social media or on a podcast or on a blog or a TV show or a documentary or whatever, I'm kind of staying my side, although there's been plenty of times where I wanted to. So he's saying he never really spoke up prior to Angie getting arrested because he felt like it would not benefit Gracie. I guess it would feel like it wouldn't accomplish a whole lot, but it might help and feel good, I guess. For the main thing is, if it could help my daughter see the truth, to have the truth out there, that could be a plus. That's really the main reason I'm doing this. So he's saying now that Angie's been arrested, maybe this is like another additional way of, maybe after Angie's arrest, he's saying maybe Gracie is opening her eyes. And this is like, hey, here's a very easily available truth out there. His version of the truth, right? He says that he's grieving the loss of both of his kids. Quote, and being a dad was the coolest, most important thing in my life, and it went away quickly. And so the darkness and the abruptness of that is hard. And to feel, like I mentioned before, the day of my son's accident, the helpless feeling of not being able to protect and help and recover and fix, and to try and not be able to help that and not be able to help my daughter in a different but also very dramatic way is very hard to deal with on a daily basis. Aaron says that he hopes in a way that if there is a criminal trial for Angie, he says he hopes a lot of the truth will come out. I will say the podcast episodes, I mean, it's hard because both the parents, when I listen to them on most podcasts and interviews, they seem very rational people. They seem like they've got their head on straight. Angie all the time seems like she's got her head on straight, except when she's kind of saying things that don't align with other things we've heard, such as Gracie saying that she's posting that YouTube video on her own free will, and then later Angie is saying that she didn't want to do it. So those are the times where I kind of raise my eyebrows at Angie in her podcast interviews, but otherwise I never get this sense that she is this weird attention-seeking narcissistic mother who would manipulate her children. I don't get any sense of that. And then with Aaron, I actually don't get, I don't think you can get a sense of whether someone is a predator. I don't think so. Like, I think if you say you can, it's very difficult. So that's, I don't even want to say that I'm judging that, right? I'm not saying that he is or is not. I'm just saying, like, it's not something that I would sit there and be like, let me see if someone is a predator when they talk about something random, right? But I don't get like this very conniving vibe from him either. What I get from him is he seems like the guy that just lets things happen and like not in a good way. You know, I don't know. Like when I listen to the podcast, I'm like, okay, well, maybe it makes sense that he doesn't want to sue Toyota. I don't know. Like on one hand, he seems litigious, but on the other hand, he seems like the type of person that's like, oh, well, moving on. My son died suspiciously. Oh, well, moving on. He doesn't seem meek. He just seems like, I don't know if it's a lack of care. I don't know if it's a lack of parental care. I don't know. But even when he talks about Grant's death, I will say this is the parts where I'm like, that's weird. He says Angie's trying to blame his death on something. And I was literally having this conversation with somebody else earlier today. It was just a freak accident. You know, that's what they're saying. It was just a freak accident, that it can't be anything other than it was. I've always been a believer that things happen for a reason. We're not in control at all, and we never know when our time is going to be, and the longer I live, the more I see that. And he says, as for the 911 call, I mean, when I first glanced down and first saw Grant under the truck, I almost fainted. My knees went weak, I went to the ground, but pulled up my phone and called 911. So I mean, I literally tried not. I was going to hyperventilate. We just had to get people there. He also states, quote, at the accident scene, the last thing on my mind was that he wouldn't be alive. I knew it was bad. I just knew it was bad that we needed professionals there. But the last thing on my mind is that he wasn't alive or wasn't going to make it. As for the funeral, he spoke at the funeral, and a lot of people have things to say about it, which I tend to agree with. It is a little weird. He goes up onto the podium. See, I don't know. I can talk myself into both things. I don't know if it's him trying to be stoic and not get super emotional on the podium, so he falls into that newscaster role, but it's a lot of strange hand usage. He's like, as some of you guys may not know, I'm Grant's dad. I just want to thank you for being here, and all your words have been so supportive to us. But then some people point out when his hands are clasped together, you can see that it looks like they're shaking. He definitely doesn't seem supernatural. He's not on the podium like, I want to thank everyone and giving, his hands. It's like a very uncomfortable usage of hands, whether it's nervousness, whether it's emotions. I don't know. It is weird, but is it weird because he's grieving? I don't know. And he was just saying that for the funeral. He was trying to be strong. He was trying to be strong for Gracie, but also Angie. And in the funeral speech, he does talk about Angie, and he brings Grant into Angie and talking about how Grant loved being held by Angie when he was younger. And so it seems like on one hand, I can see him trying to, although we've been through a lot as a family, like, let's try to come together for this very difficult moment. And I even want to show my ex-wife that I'm trying to be there for everyone. But on the other hand, it's also like, I don't know, the accident is so weird. And there's a lot of moments where he's very vague in that interview, in that podcast, and he just says things that maybe I personally don't get. But also, the same could be said for Angie. In an interview, Angie is asked, why would authorities cover for Aaron Solomon if what you say is true, if the forensics show otherwise? Why would anybody cover for your son's father? And she responds in a way that a lot of people find problem with because it's just so vague. And she says, I mean, that's the question. Is who is Aaron Solomon? Who is he really? And really what you're seeing here is in the sadness of Grant not being here any longer, it's just a pattern, just a continuation of the pattern of life that we've lived from 2013 till the day in July 20th, 2020 under Aaron Solomon's control. It's just a continuation why no one helped ever at any point, why no one stopped and stepped out of the circle and helped Gracie and Grant just as children on their own. There's a forensic evaluation and interview on file at the Williamson County Sheriff's Department that was arrestable and they let it go. I don't know. So if one adult had done their job, Grant would have been able to step in and do the job that adults are supposed to do. So some people thought it was a little vague. Some people thought that there are points where in different podcasts, I've seen at least 2 different times that this has happened, where the podcast host will compare Aaron Solomon to the Murdaugh family. Also a Southern family, also a highly influential Southern family. I think the Murdaughs are actually influential. I don't know how influential Aaron Solomon is, but there are times that people have pointed out that she kind of smiles at the comparisons, the analogy, the tying of the 2 names together. So I don't know. Some people think that's weird, but also Aaron is weird too. I think Aaron, during the interview, the podcast interview, he has these really weird emotional moments where when he talks about what it's like with Grant being gone, I will say he's emotional throughout the entirety of the podcast. And there are other times that he's emotional, but in regards to Grant, he's talking about how Grant being gone, quote, he's got so many friends that are still doing well in baseball. So I'm seeing a lot of his friends doing awesome things in their baseball. And a guy that he played with just got called up to the big leagues. And another one that he beat in a state tournament as the sophomore just got to the big leagues. I've got all that coming at me every day too. I've just been a heavy time in just so many different angles. So yeah, there's that.
A guy that he played with just got called up to the big leagues. Another one that he beat in the state tournament just got to the big leagues. I've got all that coming at me every day too, in just so many different angles.
People think this is evidence that all Aaron cared about was Grant's baseball career. Others argue that Aaron just happens to be a sports guy, so this is the way he communicates is through sports, and maybe this whole thing is him saying that the potential that his son had in life. So it's like the potential is gone because, his life is gone. But others are arguing, see, like he literally only cares that Grant's friends are doing well in baseball and he wishes his son was here to do well in baseball. I mean, it's just up for debate. A lot of people are just commenting different things. One netizen just brings up the 911 call and says, that's really the only thing we have to go off of. And Dad is too calm. And with the mom in podcast, she lies and cries without tears, and I find them both sick. And I just think, poor kids. Another comment reads, this feels like when it's all about me. Couples collide. It was never about the children, it's always about winning. R.I.P. Grant, and I pray for Gracie. Another netizen comments, imagine having a possible psychopath as a dad and a pathological liar as a mom for parents. Poor kids. So where are we now? Aaron has since long dropped his defamation lawsuit against Angie. This was in 2023, and now Angie is awaiting a potential criminal trial. She is out on bond. During her bond hearing, the judge says, I have to say that I have deep concerns about the defendant's ability to see the situation she's in right now. So I'm going to reduce the bond to $250,000 only on the condition that she's under house arrest. Plus, you're going to have to remove all telecommunications devices and internet devices from the residence. And if somebody slips her a telephone, she's going to be right back in jail. The only exit she would have is to come to court. That's the only time she would be allowed to leave the premises. And then he looks to the prosecutors and says, I guess you could set up a jamming device outside her house like the North Koreans.
I guess you could set up a jamming device outside her house, like the North Koreans.
Weird comment, but a lot of people have been arguing about this. Some people say that this is actually no one has a right to bond. Like, just so everyone knows, some people are arguing nobody has a right to post bail. Like, the judge can deny bail for anybody. If you are suspected of committing a crime, especially with Angie, there's an audio recording of her committing a crime. There's enough evidence, like there's no right any American has to be let out on bail. It's up to the judge. So that's one argument. Others are arguing this is really inhumane because if you don't have a single phone in the house, what do you do if there's an emergency? What if there's a fire in the house? What if you trip and fall and you hurt yourself? Like, you can't even call 911. So that has been a huge debate of people going back and forth. And then, of course, the other party will tell that party, well, then just go to jail then where you have a phone. So it's been back and forth. She is out on bond, and Angie's attorney tries to argue that Gracie should be able to have her phone in the house. So Gracie is 18 at this point, so there's no longer an argument about custody. And so she's with Angie, and the attorney is like, well, Gracie needs her phone. Maybe she can just use her phone in one room of the house.
Gracie is in the house?
Yes, it seems like it.
So that means Gracie also have no internet, no phone, no access.
I think Gracie is now going to stay with a friend of Angie's because the judge is not having it. He says, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to. It's either all gone or I'm not doing this at all. Whether your daughter can go stay with that other lady or not, he's like, I don't care. So with that, we're just going to have to wait and see what comes out of this.
So, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
What is Angie facing?
Just a murder for hire charge. Probably will plead guilty. I think so. I don't think there's going to be a criminal trial. I think she'll plead guilty. I think she'll get 8 to 30 years is usually the sentencing. But if you plead, you're looking probably on the lower end of 8-ish. But a lot of people have been given 20.
Wow.
So like 5 to 20 is what I said, yeah.
And do you know exactly what happened? Like, she just went on Google?
No, so there was a civilian. So I guess she had been asking around. Or maybe she asked someone and they were like, I know someone. So a civilian comes to the police. They go to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations and then they get an undercover agent. And there was actually a civilian involved in all of this, an undercover. I guess they went undercover. So they're like, oh yeah, I know a guy who worked with my buddy John, and so I'm going to introduce you to this guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is like just a neighbor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like a regular suburban person who is like, oh, I got to go to the cops. So Angie, though, is awaiting a criminal trial. I feel like there's probably going to be some sort of plea deal. I don't think that there's going to be a trial.
If she pleads guilty, then we probably won't have any more answers for anything.
Nothing, yeah.
But if there is a trial, then we will know a lot more.
Yes, we'll know a lot more, but it will still be limited considering you can't use your own trial where you're the defendant to bring it's hard to get things against Aaron admitted.
Right.
So it'd be a little difficult. I imagine that there would be a lot of legal barriers that the prosecutors would try to block to bring up all these different things that would be against Aaron, right? Because then you're basically saying, well, the victim deserved it, so I was trying to kill him, you know what I mean? So I think that there's that. But I mean, we'll know a lot more than we know now, I imagine, with a criminal trial. But I don't think it's going to go to trial. I hope it does, just for the sake of so many people have donated money. So many people have been so invested in this case. And just if something did happen to Grant, that's probably the best shot to get an open investigation. That's probably like the best shot to get any sort of extra information to force the police to get an investigation. So I do hope that I'm wrong, and I do hope that there is a criminal trial, but I think it's unlikely.
You said there's a gag order on the whole family? Yeah,
the whole family is under a gag order, and even if they weren't, I mean, it's probably advisable that they would not talk, yeah. But Angie has previously said about Grant's death, there has to be a way. With all the ways involved in covering this up, there has to be a way to carve out what happened to Grant. We had a child die and no explanation for it. We have one witness, and that witness's story cannot be true. So if not that, then what? Which, interestingly, like 2 months ago, end of October, 2 of the witnesses from the car accident have been located. They've come forward to the police. We don't know what they've said, but they were out of state. They were driving through the state. They were working in Tennessee, and they were out of state. They weren't keeping up with social media. They weren't following these YouTube channels and podcast episodes. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what they saw was that big of a deal. They didn't even know if Grant Solomon was dead or alive. They just like helped, and the truck couldn't come up, and so it was a whole thing, and then they left.
That's so crazy.
Now 5 years later, they're saying, oh, sorry, we didn't know. But like, hi, here we are.
Wow.
So it should be interesting what they have to say as well.
Yeah.
Because they might be the only people that have something to say that might be worthwhile.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on this case? I mean, it's such a confusing case. I will say that when I first went into it, all I've heard was that everyone's on Angie's side. And that's kind of like where I initially thought too, right? And then people start changing their minds, and I started seeing more and more as time was developing of people questioning both sides. So it's been interesting to see how even the netizen opinion has been shifting. So like in 2020, I recall everybody was on Angie's side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like without more information,
Yes.
I don't even want to make any.
Oh yeah, I don't think so.
I don't want to feel anything, because who knows what really happened here.
And I also do think that one thing I want to clarify is being on Angie's side or not believing Angie or believing Angie has no correlation with whether or not you believe Gracie. I think regardless, Gracie should be believed. I think that she's ultimately a victim in some way, shape, or form.
Every scenario, like it's a sad reality.
Every situation, every scenario, whether the sexual abuse happened, did not happen, and that's not me questioning it, but like putting out all these hypothetical scenarios out there, she is still a victim.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.